please understand that an attempt is a warning sign
Mm-hmm.
for the next one. Just so people are, and specifically clinicians and doctors and hospitals, are addressing it from that perspective. I would be remiss in my duties today if I didn't talk about the impact of drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Right.
and the fact that the first thing that uh, I tell a lot of the clients is that the first thing that's impacted when you're high is your judgment. And generally, unfortunately, poor judgment is used when people, uh, uh, especially adolescents. I remember doing DUI classes and dealing with adolescents, and one of the main things about a adolescent DUI is they're a new driver and a new drinker or drugger, usually
Mm.
16, 17-year-olds that just getting into driving and drugging. And the same thing happens here. During this developmental stage, these children have some newfound freedom to think and do some of the things that they have heard other people do. And unfortunately, they're getting high at alarming rates with a lot of drugs that are in themselves suicide pacts. And I'm speaking about the opiate crisis that we have in this country. Um, a lot of people a lot of children are smoking marijuana as a gateway, going on to drinking with some of their friends at some of these parties and dances. And then the ones who have been affected by their depression or some of the other behavioral health concerns are self medicating. And so, oftentimes that leads to poor judgment. Oftentimes that can lead to suicide. That's one of the risk factors.
Wow. Well, it just seems like there's so many traps out there. I guess mental traps out there for young people. When you look, and Ambezi raised it earlier. When you look at the whole instant access era we are in now with Twitter and Facebook and all the other social platforms, and there's also sort of a sense of bravado and combined with some anonymity that makes people feel like they can do and say things that they might not have done in person for a variety of reasons. But when young people are constantly being bombarded with you're terrible, you're ugly, those types
Mm-hmm.
of things, and it's constant, and then you're talking about a person that is not totally developed yet, as physically or mentally. So when you put all that in a bag and shake it up, it certainly is a recipe for some challenges for that young person, because even us, as we grew up 700 years ago, when people would play the dozens with you or talk about your mom or talk about your shoes or your pants or whatever the case may be, at least you could go in the house and you could get a reprieve for a few hours before you came back out and had to face that stuff all over again. But now,
That's
you go into the cafeteria, people are talking about your pants are too short or your shoes aren't this or your face is that. And on top of that, then as soon as you turn on your computer or your phone, there it is again. Look at Thin Bad's pants. Look at Ambezi's shoes.
mm-hmm.
And so that young person never even has a chance to sort of recover, from that first barrage of insults. So certainly I see how that can be a problem. And I guess what resources are available for families once they have an inclination that their young person is going through some things.
Just be aware that there is no one size fits all. So there's no real single therapeutic approach that's suitable for all persons who are considering that. Usually, a combination of medication and talk therapy um, are meant to deal with the issues that are underlying the thoughts of suicide. So
Okay,
just be
so
aware that, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, so walk us through talk therapy just
Right.
from a layman's perspective.
Yeah, we use a lot of cognitive behavioral. That's what talk therapy is, and be, behavioral therapies, which is where they change their behaviors. So those are aimed at one, relieving their thoughts of suicide or the despair that they're feeling, and then begin to show them some other solutions to problems or new ways of thinking about problem solving, social skills. You also can do, there's relaxing your muscles, the muscle relaxation. And usually that's used to help people reduce their depression, anxiety, and thoughts of social ineptitude, or not being as inept as a lot of other of their peers.
That's interesting.
So that, yes.
That's right. So how does that work? For example, so if you were treating me, for example, what would that muscle relaxation look like?
Well, actually, I would not do that. I mean, I can do some of the guided imagery types of exercises, and that's where you put some kind of soothing music on, and you actually talk a person through their body. I call it, feel your toes, feel your fingertips, take a deep breath, those kinds of things, and that kind of relaxes them for the moment, or make them more susceptible to the rest of the session. I generally do it at the end of the session, and you could do it with a group of people or individually. So that's one way of doing that. But they have relaxation therapy or therapists who have a variety of not only tools but games that are used to soothe your spirit. That's not my forte, but I would make a recommendation to that type of person if I thought it was appropriate, and would put that on the treatment plan.
And I also, I just wanted to let people know, as a resource for first steps, if you do know somebody who may be considering suicide and you think that they should talk to somebody, just remember that we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And the number for that is 1-800-273-8255. Y para español, por favor, llame a este número 1-888-628-9454. That's for the Spanish hotline. And there's also the crisis text line that you can access by texting HOME to 741741. Yeah, we bilingual out here.
Yes.
And one other, Miss Ambezi, is www.hopeline.com.
Love it.
And that'll connect you with a crisis center in your area.
Awesome. Okay.
Cool beans. It's just been, it's just so much information. You talk about, who we, when you mention latchkey children and people kind of talk, young folks talking to themselves or spending a lot of times with themselves. I'm trying to think, growing up an only child, I'm like, what's different, now? But I guess, it's just the times, the times are really different. What's acceptable is changed. Again, I always go back to, especially in our present day, the behavior that we see modeled in the White House is just, it's crazy. I mean, it just, you can't tell me that that doesn't have something to do with setting the tone of what's allowed, of what type of behavior and the ways that we treat people. When you look at, the person who occupies the White House and how they treat people and what they say, like, well, the president does it, why can't I talk to folks, anyway, any kind of way? And I don't know. I mean, we had latchkey kids, some years ago. We had, kids who had a lot of time on their own, but I guess, you don't have the same types of influences. TV was very different I guess back then, what did we have, Chief? We had three channels, and then
That's
eventually
right.
they'd go off.
That's right.
For the most
Right.
time.
That's right.
But
One
you got
o'clock in the
TV
morning.
on all night, and parents got to go to bed because they got to wake up. You could have stayed up all night as a kid when we were young, but you wouldn't be looking at anything but snow on the television.
Exactly.
But
Yes,
That's right.
indeed.
it's just
Well,
you just got to get on it.
the other thing we don't have is grandma,
Hmm.
and I can't begin to tell you how important in my growing up my elders were, and the value system that they passed down to me. And unfortunately, we're missing some of that in today's society. It's almost, um, and this is where I get to talk to the parents and the children. It's almost like it's an interruption to have to raise your child because I got so many other things to do. So you go in there and do whatever you're doing, get on the internet. Like that's the babysitter now.
Hmm.
So I try to have families understand that the family unit is important in improving everybody's mental health. And
Hmm.
so we try to structure or have them structure some family time if that's missing, because then you are able to begin to keep your fingers on the pulse of what's going on. Um, it's very very sad to see one of these children commit suicide and their parents say, "I didn't know." It's very
Right.
sad. So I encourage any one who's listening, uh, value the family unit, and if you need help, it's out there. We are there all over the country, looking as clinicians, as doctors, as change agents to help people begin to change some of the behaviors that might lead to their demise.
All right. All right. All right.
With that said, do I have a minute to just make you aware that in the Las Vegas area we now have um, the association, a chapter of the Association of Black Psychologists, and the concern that we have is that there in our communities is a need for some of this information we're talking about right now, and we also are working collaboratively with social workers and doctors and psychiatrists and other health professionals, and so we encourage you to. I'm not going to give you the website because it's kind of well actually www.abpsi, that's PSI at lasvegas.org, or you can just call at 702-825-0828, and we're looking for not only uh, professionals, but people who want to join the group. Our mission is to teach and train as many people as we can so that they could better serve the community. So if you, again, the telephone number is 702-825-0828, and that's the Las Vegas chapter of the Association of Black Psychologists.
All right.
Right.
Well, that sounds great, and that this was just incredible information, and it always breaks your heart to see a young person laying in a coffin. As Thinbad said earlier, they haven't even had a chance to live life yet, and their life is gone. And as we know, there are a host of reasons that can put that mental pressure on a young person and make them feel that there are no alternatives. And so I'm just glad that we had an opportunity to hear from you, because you've been dealing with this for decades, and now your organization also is committed to that. And also, I think it's important to recognize that your organization understands that suicide knows no racial boundaries, no economic boundaries.
This is true.
Right.
One other thing
Certainly.
that I'd like to, hopefully we can address this, and I really would like to be involved in the discussion about suicide by a police officer. and the thinking that goes behind that,